we normally want. So innovation, innovation has to be probably one of the biggest buzzwords of the last 20 years. It's on everyone's lips and almost on every company's vision statement. Yet somehow, 20 years after the year 2000, this is when we were meant to be in jumpsuits up in space, people are still talking about doing their digital revolution or digital transformation. Well, 2020 is the year everyone gets thrown in the pool. I'm Franco-English, and I came from the luxury world. So this obviously makes me an extremely arrogant, pompous hipster. So I'm not going to give you a lesson in gaming. None of you want that. Instead, what I would like to try and do is to share with you some of the things that I've learned about innovation in my career and the different worlds that I've been in. And it would be crazy not to look at it today through what's going on. All the questions that you're asking yourselves: when will guests come back? What will change? How do we as an industry need to change? Typically, we would learn from previous crises, say 9/11 or SARS or the great financial crisis. Only this time, it's all of these combined in one. We've got health, economic, geopolitical, almost war crisis. So we're on our own here. But let's be clear, whether we like it or not, in the next 18 months are going to bring a huge amount of change. Huge amount of change. Look around the world today, you can see change happen, and things that were long overdue, I think. Boring department stores and businesses that resisted change are going bankrupt. On the other hand, you've got Amazon, Alibaba, WeChat, Zoom, Fortnite, Netflix, Deliveroo, or in our own world, Flutter, having a field day. But it's not just the internet giants. What's interesting is small, agile businesses adapted to closure in a matter of days. If, like me, you were starved of your gym, it's likely you reverted to online coaching, live sessions on social media becoming your everyday, before you ended up finally subscribing to a new online service. And before Lululemon bought Mirror, a small startup, for $500 million. See how innovative this is, paper. So what can we learn from the last few months? There's obviously a huge amount of things that we need to look at, but given I have 15 minutes, I'd like to look at 5 key areas of innovation. The first thing that I think we need to consider is there has been what is really a global coup d'etat. Digital has taken everything over, everything. Whether you're old, young, geek or not, everyone is now officially online. And they were forced on there. And you know what? They like it. And not just for buying tomatoes from which side of the ocean. They're watching concerts like the one from BTS, the Korean brand, that attracted 700,000 people online. Or this, Travis Scott on Fortnite, a concert that attracted 12 million paying gamers. And it wasn't just the mass. Last weekend, a Francis Bacon painting sold for $89 million in Christie's first ever global live auction. So it's online or it's ugly. The second thing we can learn is that those who will walk back through our doors will be digital animals. Speed, efficiency, ease, and no barriers is what they'll expect. So processes, internal department comebacks will be intolerable to them. I think everyone will be well advised to tear down those walls, as Mr. Reagan said. So start eradicating queues, paper vouchers, processes. The third thing is that they've got used to bad habits, things getting to them, and not the reverse. Their music, their food, their entertainment, their work, they basically travel the world on social media. And so some companies reacted, like Airbnb, who was quick to react, offering new services, allowing you to go on guided tours, to go and see Chernobyl, or to go and see these cooking class by these drag queens in Amsterdam, all from the comfort of your couch. The guests that will come back will be simply more selfish and more demanding. So make your room their room, your event their event, and your salon their salon. And if they come back more selfish, the last 6 months reminding them that they're mortal, making them mega health conscious. And I think we see it every day. And that's the fourth area of innovation, and maybe the more obvious, but the hardest. It's going to be about crowd control. It's true that when China reopened, crowds started traveling again, but high value patrons, the first one to come back, the more valuable, will want crowd control. They will flee places with big crowds to one that can provide more intimacy. They'll be looking for a new concept I call the trusted crowds. How we frame that will probably make a huge difference to becoming their place of choice. And when they'll come back, they'll be looking for guarantees of a safe environment. Tell me that in the last few months, you haven't looked at the surface wondering if it was really clean or if the air in the room was filtered and how it was filtered. I was watching last week a marketing video by Qatar Airways that was showing how everything was incredibly sanitized. But what was interesting is part of it was reassuring, and really it also raised a huge amount more questions. When you think of IRs, cards, chips, key cards, tables, slots, chairs, thousands of potential things to worry about. And if millions of people in France became Charlie after the terrorist attack on Charlie Hebdo, I think we've all now become this gentleman, you know, not Andrew, Mr. Clean, Mr. Proper. But there has to be a better way through innovation than all of us cleaning things. And the fifth area that I'd like to focus on today is the way that we speak to the audience, communication. And I think that would, again, radically change. It would be tempting to continue talking like it was 2019. But over the last 6 months, many brands around the world have made huge mistakes, either pathetically attempting to show empathy in GUI ads like Uber did, or ignoring what was going on. One of the world's largest luxury brands produced a digital fashion show only a few weeks ago, as if nothing was actually happening. And the audience didn't sit silently by. They reacted very strongly, dealing out comments against the brand. Others managed to navigate these dangerous waters actually reasonably well. LVMH, for example, turned its perfume production into making sanitizing gels that were in short supply. Whilst we at Melco sent our colleagues to volunteer and help the community. Zara asked models to photograph themselves at home, joining the audience in lockdown. When we were thinking of the reopening, I originally thought that people would come out with a roaring urge to go out, celebrate and party, a bit like after SARS in Hong Kong. And to be honest, we did until I think end of February, until the second wave started. And then it became clear that this was not going to be the case. We have an audience that has gone through significant trauma. They've suffered physically, emotionally, economically, and all of them very practically. On social media, some celebrities like Madonna in this video was flaunting their pain to be locked down in their million-dollar homes. And suddenly she found herself, like a lot of them, at the receiving end of social media rage. And we saw a radical shift to celebrities and KOLs having a more authentic, almost normal tone. It was fascinating to watch. I don't know if you did Lady Gaga's One World concerts, where every one of the stars there were super carefully choreographing their performance from very normal surroundings in their homes. Yes, it was the Rolling Stones, but in a small room or small rooms. And Ronnie, just here, was drumming on suitcases. So I think we're in the middle of a huge shift in the way we communicate, more authentic, more human. How we do this without going down the sewers is going to be very tricky. How we do this while remaining attractive will separate the best from the rest. And so while no crystal ball exists, I think we all know that after the first wave of client return, behaviors will have changed. Take, once again, the luxury world. After an enthusiastic reopening in China, reality is settling in. Yes, the business in China is up from last year, but overall, it's still only 1/3 of what it was with the Chinese globally, only 1/3. So our clients will be back. They'll be more demanding than ever. And I see 5 key areas for innovation. We talked about digital everything. We mean everything. Barrierless service, bringing experiences to them, controlling trusted crowds and healthy everything, and a new way of communicating. All of these areas crying for innovation. And believe me, innovation does not belong to a department that has that title. Today, ideas and R&D are everywhere because it's all about an attitude. And it's found in people that are brave enough to ask one very, very simple question. Why? Why are we still using cash? Why do I need to stand up from my chair? Why do hotels make me check in at a desk? Why do you not know what I love? Sounds simple. So what's holding us back? Well, even with the pandemic, why does it still feel like so many are being dragged screaming and kicking into the digital age? I think the primary killer is actually fear. Some of that fear is technophobia. We're all familiar with it. How many of you, for example, all of us today on Zoom, refuse to turn your webcams on Zoom as we're having meetings as well? It's amazing today. We have this and we don't use it. But look at the screen you're viewing me on now. It's likely that you spend more time with it than anything, or actually probably even anyone else. And still, we're afraid of it. PCs, phones, tablets are accused of making people antisocial and being an intrusive nuisance. But our kids' school might have been significantly better prepared for online learning if adults hadn't been so wary of screens. In 1818, Thomas Jefferson described printed fiction as leading to, and I quote him, bloated imagination, sickly judgment, and disgust towards life. Yeah, that was the book. 80 years later, it became radio, then TV, then the internet, and now look at what's happening with 5G. Sure, it's far easier to criticize and kill rather than have to get up and do something. And yes, most innovations fail, but so do organizations who do not. Take Kodak. They invented digital photography, and they're now in the cemetery for looking down at it. So it's not enough to ask the right questions. You also need to kill the cynicism. This means never accepting from contributors it will never work, I don't like this. You know, those who work with me know that I'm not interested in what people actually don't like, only in what catches their attention and what excites them. And if it scares someone in the group, well, that's often a sign that something is worthwhile pursuing. That's why the most interesting innovation happens either with a fierce, visionary, and lucky leader, I'm lucky enough to have one, or when you're forced to. Look at how we've had to adapt to working from home. Despite research showing remote workers are more productive, most bosses were opposed to flexible working practices. So when we were forced into remote access, there were very few good tools to use. Yes, Zoom went from 10 million users to 300 million users in April, but the interface, honestly, is lousy, basic, and the service and security very glitchy. What the hell happened since Skype? And that was 17 years ago. Probably actually the most interesting thing on Zoom is this. This is a llama farm in California, and you can invite a llama for $100 into your Zoom meeting. But I still have to do this on paper. So, contrary to general belief, innovation is not necessarily expensive. It's often centered around the perfection of something that already exists by coming at it from a different angle. Big investments normally come down way further down the track once the concept is proven, but the idea is what comes first. Look at Steve Jobs. He didn't invent the computer or the smartphone. His genius was in taking things that already existed and making them better. Like Google, they didn't invent the search engine, they perfected it. Same with Tesla and the electric car, Dyson and the vacuum cleaner, Amazon and online shopping. All innovators, all perfecting a product or process. You can bet actually that the technology that will drive the big shifts in the years to come already exists, and all it needs is an idea to perfect it. So all these startups that I've mentioned, interestingly, started in a garage with no money or very little. Ideas came before the banks. Some, like Google, take today a balanced approach. Yes, be radical free thinkers, but as an adjunct to core business. And they have a rule called the 7-20-10. 70% of resources are about improving the existing offering, 20% on the adjacent business, and 10% to blue sky ideas. And that's the 10% that leads an online search engine building self-driving cars. But like now, innovation can also be born from opportunity. See the rise of Netflix. Actually, what's interesting is Netflix started in 1997 renting DVDs. And after watching a small startup called Amazon selling books online, what the innovation they made was to turn to subscription, DVD movie rentals by mail. Yes. In 2000, the founders approached Blockbuster, which was then the leader of DVDs, and offered them the chance to buy Netflix for $50 million as an instant solution to their lack of online presence. Blockbuster, who had very solid research, believed that people liked and even preferred going into the stores to choose a movie. So they said no. Well, Netflix now have 180 million subscribers and they're valued at close to $200 billion, all through opportunity-based innovation. So whilst we might all be shivering in the middle of this coronavirus storm, we need to look at it as an opportunity to innovate. Put yourself in the shoes of those digital savvy guests who will be returning. Because if they start asking themselves why, you're in trouble. Why are they asking me to do this? Why can't I get their thing from here? Why doesn't this plug into that? Why do I have to go over there? Why do I need one of those? So drop the fear, ask questions. Innovation is not a department, it's not a budget, and it's not Star Trek. It's about you and your team's killing desire to make things better. And nobody has the definite answer, which is the great thing. One thing is for sure though, don't be a blockbuster. Thank you.